Hello, and welcome to today's demo, Real-Time Network Visibility, Intelligence, and Enforcement. My name is Adam, and I'm the Solutions Engineer here at Great Bay. I've been in the industry for about 14 years in both a wide phase of roles as well as multiple industries, including help desk, solutions and services design, services and solutions and integration, as well as consulting and other similar roles. Now I do have several slides to kind of set up the demo. I kind of want to walk you through to kind of help frame it out. But at the end of which I will be taking some questions, so feel free to submit your questions throughout the presentation and demo through the webinar GoToMeeting. I believe it's under the questions tab. You can just type it in there and we'll get to it at the end. Also today, for you live listeners, we'll be giving away an Amazon Echo Dot at the end, so stay tuned and we'll announce the winner at the end. That's about it for intro, so let's go ahead and jump into the presentation. So there's no question that today's footprint of IoT devices are growing. To quote my son's favorite movie, no ifs, ands, ors, buts about it. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, that's from Cars. My son is 4.5 years old. It's his favorite series. Gartner has even gone so far to say that there's going to be about over 20 billion connected IoT devices by 2020. Now this makes sense because IoT devices typically increase efficiencies, which in turn increase profits. So it aligns very easily with those predictions. This change of landscape obviously will lead to a reevaluation of security postures and security practices. And any solid security policy is always going to start with visibility. The CIS top 20 controls have, for multiple versions now, stated that the first priority control is visibility of devices on your network. So a good visibility solution provides, or should provide, a source of truth to what's on your network through detection, inventory, and other roles of what that it should be a foundational part of. It should enhance your incident response capabilities through historical trending of device identities and behavior, as well as lend towards the remediation side to, at a minimum, at least alert you to what's going on if something suspicious were to occur on your network. To maybe even take a more heavy-handed approach in doing quarantine and isolation. And lastly, it should increase your operational efficiency, whether it's because of an agentless design, through procurement benefits of knowing exactly what you have and where it is, or being more of a device-agnostic solution so that you can limit what solutions you have to deploy to gain that visibility. So some of the benefits that you can gain from a solution like this are from the large, can be seen from the large amounts of profiles available, profiles that are customizable, updatable, and very easy to manage. The flexibility from deployment, being able to deploy into various different environments with different infrastructures. The enforcement aspect, as I mentioned already, being able to not only just alert when something is going suspicious on in your network, but to be able to quarantine a device should it be acting in a manner that you do not wish it to, or to completely isolate the device or kick it off the network should it be significant enough. And having that flexibility to determine what your reaction is based on multitude of factors, including the severity of the occurrence to the location on the network and other parameters that you can define to not negatively impact your availability. And then also being flexible with management, being able to lend right into ease of use and have very limited number of employees need to manage this. That means having a dashboard that is customizable to your role within the organization. And that way you can have one solution that supports multiple different organizations due to the views and information they can convey to you. Also being able to integrate with other solutions through whether it's an ingestion through a data connector or through a more powerful API to give you more customized views and information to other security solutions. Obviously, integration with something like a SIM is almost mandatory when you look at visibility. SIM really is a centralized collection of events and security happenings on your network, and so being able to feed that source of truth of visibility to that SIM and knowing when something is acting in a manner it shouldn't, or when something's connecting or disconnecting is very important. An example there is Splunk is a very well-known SIM solution. Having a strong integration with solutions like Splunk is important. And then lastly, for ease of use, don't underestimate agentless. Agentless is extremely important for a number of reasons. One, it lends very well to the IoT setup. IoT, of course, is a lot of unmanaged devices, and so having an agentless solution kind of handles all those devices much easier. It also lends well to reducing complexities involved with installing an agent and compatibility concerns you may have when deploying agents to systems. So let's move into the demo now. I am pleased to show you our Great Bay Software 6th generation network intelligence platform. This is our dash. For those of you that are familiar with our version 5 or earlier versions, a little bit has changed. You'll notice that some of the widgets, if you'll call them, are different, and that's because now you can customize the interface. This is a feature that I've been waiting for, and I'm really excited to have, because again, you can customize it to your persona. So, for example, I'm logged in as an administrator, and an administrator may not care to see event counts. They're more interested in the health of the system. So I may go through and add things like show me the different Mac vendors, and then show me what endpoints have gone off the network lately. I can come down and I can delete this guy altogether. Save that dashboard, and I've got what I want to see. Someone like an analyst, so I were to log in as an analyst here, I can actually change it to view the events. I can see that, what events I've got going on the network here. I can see my authentication attempts. I can see event summaries, and I can drill down and see event information. Now, that's the other thing that I really like about this solution is the fact that that your dashboard is very interactive. And so everything you see here can actually lead me into more information. So from the aspect of visibility, if you look in the bottom left here, I've got this endpoint directory wheel. This is a total of all the endpoints that I have on the network. As I browse through here, you'll notice it's in descending order, and I can browse through the breadth of the network to see what's there. Now, I can drill in. I mentioned it's interactive. So, for example, I can come into iOS 11 here, and I can see now a tabular view of all my iOS 11 devices. Now, on this tabular view, you have some good information, such as location of a device. So these are all wireless, so I've got the access points that they're connected to. I also have the date that I last saw activity from that device. And then I also have an IP address should you need to cross-reference that with like a SIM or something. That data is there for us. Now, one other thing about these tabular views, whenever you get to a tabular view within our interface, it is exportable. There's an import-export button here where I can export to CSV or XML, and this serves as a very quick and dirty means of pulling data out of the appliance, and very quickly. Should you get come into work on a Monday morning and you've got a voicemail from a manager who wants to know the total number of devices and where they're at or whatnot for a certain type of device or appliance, you can very quickly pull that one-time kind of snapshot. Should you need a more robust or more scheduled style report, that is something that is also available. So if I jump down to reports, you'll notice that in my report management, I have an iOS 11 or iOS report. This is something that I've got that runs on a weekly schedule. It runs and outputs into a PDF that I can download and save or send out or email. It is essentially the same thing you saw on the last page, but this is a snapshot from when the report ran. So I can run this, and from this, I can also take interactive actions. I can drill in further to a device and see information about that device. I can go into profile data and see things of what that device has done that makes me think it is what it is, or why I've profiled it in such a way. Now, I did mention that we have location information. That is a big part of what we offer, the ability to show the location of a device. And so anytime you can have location information, it makes sense to be able to draw a topology map, and we can do that. So if I come into our location here, I've got our Minneapolis branch, drill into that, I can see the switches that are actually on the network. I can move these around if I want to reorganize what it looks like, but it's already drawn connectors to how it feels that the networks are connected. And I can drill in, for example, into switch 1, which is my specific lab that I run my demos from. And so you can see I've got a list of all the devices on the network. I have several views that I can use this. So there's a profile view in which I can see the devices grouped by category. So I've got my actual Great Bay appliances up here. I have an infusion pump on the network as well. I can also view in VLAN. So I know I'm a fairly flat network in my lab, but if you were in a situation or an environment where you had multiple VLANs, it'll just show you what devices are in what VLAN, which is really great for like a network infrastructure engineer or an IT help desk. It's again lends to the wide use case that we can that they can be leveraged for different groups within an organization to get benefit out of. So I've mentioned iOS 11 a couple times, or iOS in general. So let me show you what a profile actually is and what it means and how it works within our appliance. So this device here is an iOS 10. Let me go back to an iOS 11 device. So I've got iOS 11 right here. Oh, one thing I will mention too before I move on. So you notice this search is more than just iOS 11. I'm looking for all iOS devices here. And this is great because this is actually a live view of our, a snapshot from when the report ran a couple of days ago. But it can show me what devices are here. So I know, for example, our conference room is running iOS 8. That's something I may want to address. iOS 8 is old, it's not supported anymore. There's no security patches for it, so we can get that taken care of. I also had one of our executives has an iOS 8 device as well. So I can kind of kindly point that out to him and say, hey, you may want to consider updating this device. If you need help, let me know. So let me drill into this iOS 11 device. You'll see that I've got a profile that is defined that shows me how this profile should behave. So I mentioned that we can do authentication, and we can isolate or determine the network access the device should have. That is determined right here. Now notice a lot of stuff is grayed out. That is because this is a factory profile. Which leads me into something I want to share with you, is that there is a differentiation we have between factory profiles and user customized profiles. And this is really important because we have a very wide variety of profiles. So let me go here. We'll go back a page. You can see iOS 11. A little quick on the draw there. All right, iOS 11, we have 9 different profiles from iOS generic, and then from 4 through 11. There's a little symbol next to the far left column there that looks like a factory. And that reminds me of the game Axis and Allies, for any of you that used to play that. It's the same symbol that you use to show where you're producing troops and infantry from, but I always think of that when I see these icons. But these factory profiles cannot be modified because they're just that, they're factory. And you can actually update these whenever you want. We release new factory profiles very, very consistently. And that can be pulled down through this factory profile update. So I can pull from their website. It's going to go out to our website. It's going to say, hey, what new factory profiles do you have? And then I'll be able to look at them and then decide if I want to import them or not. Now, this is important because we don't want to overwrite, and this is why they're not editable, is you don't want to overwrite something that has been changed on your site or at your system. Changing an existing profile could cause issues if you use leveraging that profile to dictate authentication. So we do have a way to clone these profiles, and I'll show you that here in a minute. But looking here, you can see that I've got 4 profiles that have been removed, 10 that have been added, and then 6 rule changes. So I can actually see that here. I can look at the new profiles that are added. I can look at what's being taken out, and I can make a decision based on this to import or not. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel that, and I'll jump back here to these profiles. So if I wanted to, for example, use iOS 11's profile and modify it, I can clone it. Cloning this profile is going to now let me edit it and change its authentication levels. This is what I was talking earlier about, showing you how we control authentication. So if we are used in kind of a NAC style setup, or maybe NAC assistant, where we're handling the offboarding of the IoT decisions, the non-supplicant supported decisions, we can go through and assign network access levels per profile, and that is done here. I can grant it general access. I can also go through and add return attributes such as what VLAN we want it on. So I can say that these iOS 11 devices should be on VLAN 99. And then anytime an iOS 11 device joins, it'll move to VLAN 99 based on our radius interaction. So that's kind of how profiles from a high view work. There's some more details here I won't go into due to time restraints. But jumping back to our reports, I did show you that we have these customizable reports. So let me jump in. I'll show you kind of a little bit more about how they work. So a customizable report works by creating a custom search. And so you can search all of your devices based on a number of criteria. For this example, I'm looking at profiles. Notice I have other options here as well, but I'm looking at any profile that has the word iOS in it, and it has to be an Apple MAC address. Of course, I can tweak this and change it any way I want, and that'll generate this report. Once I have the report, I can save it, I can schedule it, and I can print it. We do come stock with several reports as well. So if I jump back to the reports page, you'll see that I've got things like, it's a good one here, fully qualified domains. So I can see a list of all the FQDNs that are on my network. And this is kind of nice because it allows me to see if there's devices on a different domain that are sitting on my network. For example, here I've got this bakertiley.net. I'm not familiar with it. It's not part of what we have here within Great Bay. So I can jump in and I can take a look at these devices and see information about them. Look at this guy, for example. We can see that he's a Windows 7 device. This bottom one here, I think, it doesn't have an IP at the time, but it is wireless, and I know what access point it's on. So I can try to go track these down and discover what's going on. But they're both Windows 7 devices. So it's a great one of the many canned reports we have that can add value. So that concludes the demo. I'm going to jump back into our presentation here and let you know we are coming up to the Q&A portion. So make sure to submit those questions under the questions dropdown of the webinar panel. And then while you're doing that, I do want to share with you some information that may be of value to you. A great takeaway from today is the product overview, the network visibility, validation, and enforcement link. That's kind of a two-page brief on what we are and how the product works. It's something that I hand out all the time, and then I found great value in it because you can take that to someone who wasn't part of the webinar and kind of fill them in on what we do and what we're about. We also have several case studies and some other information you can check out on our website. And I believe we have one question from John. Says, what size deployment is Great Bay software designed for? It's a great question, John. And the answer, honestly, is any. We scale, we have deployments as low as about 1,000 endpoints, 1,000 devices, up to over 1.5 million devices. Based on how we collect data and how we deploy, it takes very little additional hardware to scale up to collecting other sources or other locations, if you will. Just to give you an example, we had a customer that had, I want to say, over between 150 to 250 retail locations throughout the U.S., and we had a total of about 18 collectors and a single server that handled all their infrastructure. So we scale very well. Our deployment is also very quickly. We can typically be deployed within a couple months, which is significantly different from a more traditional NAC agent-based solution. So I hope that answers your question. I see we got one more question that just came in. How does grade-based software collect information on connected devices? So there's a number of ways we do that. I know when I'm talking to customers, a lot of times people come in with the idea that, hey, we should run scans, whether it's through like a Tenable or some other type of point-in-time scan, and we don't do that. We, being agentless and taking availability in mind, we try to, instead of talk to the device itself, we try to talk to the network infrastructure that those devices leverage. And so we actually tap into the routers, the switches, data flows, whether it's the NetFlow, JFlow, SFlow, things like DHCP, DNS, Active Directory, a multitude, those are just a couple, but a multitude of high value sources of data within the network that, while dissimilar, have good information. And we pull that back into our warehouse of context and kind of normalize it and correlate it into each, for each device. And that lets us get a crisp view of what each device is doing on the network and where it's located. And that lets us generate our decision on what a device is and how it should be behaving and baselining and whatnot. So I think no other questions yet. So I guess we'll move on to drawing the winner for the Amazon Echo Dot. Do we have a winner? Edward Ho. Congratulations, Edward. We will be in touch with you after today's webinar. So thank you. I appreciate the attendance. I believe this webinar will be recorded, so you can always review it later or share it with your colleagues. Feel free to drop me a line. Let me go back a slide. I think I went through that pretty quick. Feel free to call me directly or email me with any questions you may have. You can also reach out to a more generic inbox, info@greatbasesoftware.com, with questions as well. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your day.